Hello, this is Professor Sexton, and I'm here to talk about Scene 3 of Disgrace. Scene 3 is the largest segment of this play, and it's where a lot of the things that have happened in Scene 1 and Scene 2 come to a head. It is 3 months after the events of Scene 2. So if you remember in Scene 2, that was when Amir and Emily were discussing in the article in the New York Times. So Scene 3 opens up. And one of the most important things to know about Scene 3 is that when the scene begins, Amir is standing on the balcony and he's drinking. And, he drinks and then he drinks again and then he smashes the glass on the terrace floor. That is very important because it kind of sets the stage for what's going to happen later on in this scene. In this scene, in this scene, Amir and Emily are having a small dinner party. It's not a dinner party. They're having two friends over. So they're having Isaac, who we met in scene 2, who's the curator, and Jory, who we've not met. Jory is an African American woman. She works at the law firm with Amir, and she's Isaac's wife. So that's how you got to keep that into consideration. So at this get together, you have Muslim American, white American woman, African American woman, and Jewish American male. Isaac is Jewish. And so what Akhtar does is he puts all these different groups together. Then he adds alcohol, and then he adds Amir's issues already there. And so this is what happens in this scene. I am not going to summarize this scene so much, just to point out some of the things that come up. So at the very beginning, Amir tells Emily about what happened at work, where people at work start to ask him where his parents were born. And when he filled out the application, he had put Pakistan. Now, while his father was born in Pakistan, what happened in 1947, when India got its independence from the UK, India was split into two countries, India and then Pakistan. And Pakistan was more of a Muslim country, or is more of a Muslim country. And so he put down that his parents were born in in India, which is partly true because his father was born in 1946 and it was India, but his mother was born in 1948 and she was born in Pakistan. Now, it seems like a minor thing, but for the law firm, it is not. But then also, what they're doing is they start to talk about Amir's name because they find out that Amir's real name was not Kapoor, his real name was Abdullah. That's his surname. And so they begin to think that now Amir is misrepresenting himself, that he's been keeping secrets. And all of this stems back to that article that happened in the New York Times in scene 2. So you already see that all of this stuff that Amir feared, and it's what he feared in scene 1. This is what he was talking about in scene 1. You see all of this is coming to a head, and he's not dealing with it very well. The party happens. There's law firm talk. We learned that Jory had been offered another position at another law firm, and whether she's going to take it or not is there. That this is foreshadowing for something else is going to happen later on with that offer that she had. The painting that Emily has done of Amir is back on topic because the painting is hanging above the fireplace, and Isaac is curating a show where Emily's work is being featured, and he says that he's considering taking that picture as one of the paintings that will be exhibited in Emily's story show. And that once again brings up this whole issue with the painting that we saw in scene 1. The conversation begins again about the painting, and Isaac starts to talk about it. This is on the bottom of page 46. This is Isaac speaking. He says, "So there you are," and he's talking to Amir. "So there you are in your $600 Chevette shirts, like Vasquez's brilliant apprentice slave in his lace collar, adorned in the splendors of the world you're now so clearly a part of, and yet." He holds pause there. Amir says, "Yeah," and Isaac, the question remains. Amir, the question of your place, which is very significant because once again, this is the thing that Amir has been trying to do throughout, even before the play began, to establish his place. We also learned that he spent $600 on shirts. So once again, it's that whole notion of perception. Uh, Beautiful apartment, beautiful wife, expensive shirts, the job. And so all of these things that shows his success and that he's made it is what he's trying to do. But it seems like all of this is unraveling around him. And this painting, some ways, is at the heart of it. And so the painting comes up again. Then what happens is Amir and Isaac start to have a discussion, debate about religion in terms of Islamic religion and Jewish faith. And it's one that, once I say, you already have alcohol in the mix. And so it's one that gets really heated, particularly between these two men, where you see Isaac and Amir really go at it. Jory and Emily, by and large, try to keep the peace and try to steer the conversation back to food and other things. But occasionally, even they, particularly Jory, falls into the conversation as well. And so all the stuff that you've seen in scene one and scene two is coming to a head here. Amir, talks about how he's denounced his faith and that he no longer practices, he no longer believes. You can see that in the fact that he's drinking, and also in the fact that one of the things that they're having for dinner that night is pork. But once again, I kind of ask myself, is Amir doing all this just to prove a point? And then, so this continues. And like I said, there's a lot here. And so I'm not going to go over all of that. And it continues to a point where it gets very heated. That all of a sudden Emily reminds them of why they're there, to kind of like celebrate her paintings being put into the art show. And so what happens is, and I'm fast forwarding a lot here, Amir and Jory decide to go out to get champagne, and Isaac and Emily are left at the apartment together. And here we're beginning to see something that we did not know. But like, if you go back and look at the earlier scenes, that there was kind of a sense that this was going on. So it turns out that some time ago, Emily and Isaac slept together when they were at a show in London. Now, I don't call it an affair because it's not ongoing. It was a one-time thing. However, Isaac has been trying to stir Amir up, because Emily says to Isaac, and this is on page 67 of my copy, "You think I don't know what you're doing? What am I doing?" And she's like, "Isaac, please." So obviously, the thing is, Isaac is trying to stir the pot. And so then there becomes this big argument. Well, not a big argument, like this thing with Emily and Isaac about that one night sexual thing that they had. But then this is also where Isaac starts to tell Emily that Amir is not good for her and that Amir will never understand her. He says on the bottom of 69, "He doesn't understand you. He can't understand you. He puts you on a pedestal. It's in your painting. He's looking out at the viewer. The viewer is you. You painted it. He's looking at you." And then he says something at the very end of that, where he says, "The slave finally has the master's wife." And so this kind of reveals Isaac's reading of that painting. But keep in mind, Isaac has another objective because he is still interested and he's in love with Emily. He tells her that, even though he's married to Jory. There is something else that is happening too. Why Emily, and I mean, why Jory and Amir are out. So remember when I told you that Jory had an offer at another law firm? Well, it seems like the partners at the law firm where she and Amir worked at countered, where not only are they offering her an incredibly large raise, but they're also making her a partner. The issue here is Amir has been at the law firm longer than Jory. So if anybody was going to be made partner first, it seems like it should be Amir. And so this is the conversation. We don't see this. The play doesn't show us this. This is a conversation that is happening off stage. But what happens is Jory and Amir get into an argument, and Jory storms back. When she storms back into the apartment, she sees Emily and Amir. She sees Emily and Isaac in a kiss or a moment of intimacy. So this is the bottom of page 70. Let me just read it to you. This is Isaac speaking. And then one day you'll leave him. I'm in love with you. Isaac leans in to kiss her. Emily doesn't move in or out. Just as the front door opens, Jory enters in a huff, returning for Isaac and her things, ready to leave for the evening. Isaac, we need to get out of here. She stops, but stopped in place by the moment of intimacy between her husband and Emily. And so she kind of comes in and catches them in that moment. And then everything just kind of like explodes because Amir comes in after that. He's upset that Jory has been made a partner. And then on top of that, the fact that Jory has just caught Emily and Isaac in this moment of intimacy. And so for Amir, this is it. Like everything that started in scene one has collapsed down on him. So it's the job, it's his wife, it's everything. There's a little bit more argument here. Amir spits in Isaac's face. But then the thing that really happens that is quite shocking is how scene 3 ends. This is on the bottom of page, this middle 75, and I'm just going to read it. Emily, Amir, I'm so disgusted with myself if I could take it back. All at once, Amir hits Emily in the face, a vicious blow. The first blow unleashes a torrent of rage overtaking him. He hits her twice more, maybe a third, in rapid succession. Uncontrolled violence, as brutal as it needs to be, in order to convey the discharge of a lifetime of discreetly building resentment. And then in parentheses, Akhtar gives stage directions for the director. He says, in order for the stage violence to seem as real as possible, obscuring it from direct view of the audience might be necessary, for it is to unfold with Emily hitting by a couch, for example. And at the last blow, Amir realizes what he's done, and he says, oh my God. But then, that is not the end of scene 3. There's knocking at the door, and Abe comes in. And just as he comes in, Emily emerges from full view from the couch with her face all bloody. It's a scene 3 ends in a way that you were not expecting. I saw this play performed, and I remember when that happened, it was shock. I just did not see that coming. But then after you thought about it, it kind of makes sense. And this is another one of those things that you have to be careful with the literary work. This is literary work. It's a representation. It's not condoning this type of violence, but also, and this is not an excuse, this is an explanation. But the way that Akhtar gives that description of Amir's violence towards Emily, he's taken out his frustrations of a lot of things on her. Now, does it make it right? No, it does not. But that is what he's doing. That is where that comes from. And so that is how scene 3 ends. All right, folks, that's the end of scene 3. I'll be back with one more lecture about scene 4.